What will the economy look like as AI increasingly takes over jobs? It's likely to be dominated by a small, ultra-rich group of people who can afford to own a growing workforce of robots. More and more humans, employees, will become redundant and need an alternative. The question we're asking now is, does an alternative exist that's sustainable, will not make people redundant, and which will enhance the lives of all people? One option is to build such an alternative economy, if possible, rooting it in what already exists. In fact, an outline for such an economy was developed in the 1980s by a Dutch visionary socio-active Peter Koistra. Its approach to financing was endorsed by Jan Tinbergen, who won the Nobel Prize for the analysis of economic systems. It has been described in 3 books, one co-financed by the government of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. The plan as conceived provides, apart from a universal extra income, for an anti-inflation fund and a fund for debt repayment of developing countries, as well as the running of the system. While at that time, the world was not yet ready to contemplate such a thing, now such an economy is urgently needed, and the basic elements already exist. We're now calling it a plan for a supplementary income for all, or a SEPA plan. In what follows, we'll explore the elements of the plan, how it comes into being, and what makes it sustainable, even as robots take over jobs. Just imagine if each one of us, every woman, man and child, had an extra income starting with just the equivalent of 30,000 a year to spend sustainably, without outside pressure on what we ourselves most yearn for, and which harms neither other people nor planet Earth. Then those of us in marginalized communities would spend it on becoming food sufficient, education, starting a cottage industry, possibly with the UN's help. We might contribute half in our communities to build a water pump, to renewable energy or sanitation system, creating a stronger basis for our community's health and saving women hours a day to now focus on education or vocation instead of fetching water or searching for fuel. Those of us with sustainable goods and services to sell can make these available, and advertising for this newly emerged global market would focus on what promotes each of our own well-being and helps our world to flourish. This would open up a world of opportunity to offset the world of threats so prevalent today. It would help to align our diverse interests and nurture feelings of benevolence and gratitude as we feel more fulfilled. If, in addition, each of us would be encouraged to participate in small group discussions in our communities, in schools, our organizations and clubs, to decide together via global grassroots to global consultations which goods and services can be considered sustainable and should be available to be bought that year for our extra income to promote sustainability, then we would become increasingly aware of ways in which we're harming the planet and thereby ourselves. This would especially be the case if clear reasons would have to be provided to resolve disputes around items to be included for sale. And all of this would create a planet-wide alignment of our individual well-being, that of all people, and global sustainable development. Just a few years of such an annual discussions supported by informational advertising would lead to each of us behaving more sustainably. This would mitigate climate change, empower us to live in greater harmony with nature, increase the rate at which each of the SDGs are being achieved, and align our individual well-being with that of all other people and nature. If the goods and services we collectively agreed to make available for our SEPA income were available via a global electronic marketplace where each one of us had our private account, then next to existing less sustainable economies, a new global, fully sustainable economy would come into being, where those in need of material goods and services would exist next to an increasing amount of people whose physiological needs are met, focusing on non-material goods and services. With a non-material focus, the new CEFA economy can grow ad infinitum without further depleting the planet. And artificial intelligence would be able to take over jobs as human beings expanded into stimulating new areas of creativity. This new economy can gradually take over from less sustainable ones as, without conflict, business moves towards sustainable production as they are ready and people's tendency to consume more sustainably grew. At the present time, the old economies would be able to continue with rapidly decreasing impact. The administration of the plan would be necessary to oversee and run the system, would consist of economists to assess and later establish each year the size of the extra CEFA income, development workers to explain and facilitate the smooth running of the plan, about 2 for each 100, and trained using the modalities available today via the internet, and a global electronic marketplace with accounts for all people, banking facilities and exchange facilities. All those would be the elements of the plan. Although our CEFA income can only be spent digitally within the CEFA electronic marketplace, the CEFAs earned by providers, including those working for the CEFA Administrative Agency, would be able to be exchanged for their national currencies to support their livelihoods and enable them to produce those goods and services that have actually been ordered for purchase by individuals that year. They would be welcomed by national banks since they would fulfill the role of what today are considered stable currencies. Although infrastructure would have to be further developed to accommodate the CEFA plan, all know-how and basic structures needed exist, especially if the infrastructure were housed within the UN system itself, and all parts of the UN would be allowed to contribute staff and know-how. All benefit from this CEFA plan. Each of us personally would be empowered to pursue what fills our individual lives and be able to form closer connections with those in our communities as we become more conscious of how our individual, communal, and global interests are aligned with one another and Mother Earth. Businesses would have a growing global market for which to provide sustainable goods and services, and governments would be encouraged to be more transparent by increasingly knowledgeable and fulfilled seasons. And Mother Earth would once more be able to prosper as each one of us recognizes and serves through the CEFA plan each of the 3 dimensions of sustainable development and all of the SDGs.